These days, it's really hard to go and try to not see a reboot or a remake. It's really hard to go and avoid them. And I think it's safe to say that a lot of people are sick of them. Even though reboots and remakes are nothing new, it seems that it's just happening more and more and more than ever nowadays. We even have a remake of Rugrats coming in the next couple years. And they're going to have a movie where it's going to be CGI and live action hybrid, and it's just who got that idea? But even then, I think about it, and when I do, I know there are some remakes and reboots, and maybe even a sequel series, because who's to say that a continuation wouldn't be a bad idea? I think about it, and yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that, actually. Reboots, remakes, and whatever else can be done well. If it has the right team on it, it can be done in the right way, and it can be a success. For example, Samurai Jack. Last year, Samurai Jack was a great way to go and do a continuation. And I know a lot of people didn't really care for the last couple of episodes, and I can see why, but overall, I think a lot of people did like it. So it was a good continuation. They made it a little bit more adult, but not too adult. They didn't have blood everywhere or everyone swearing left and right, anything like that. No, it did have some scenes that wouldn't be in the original in it, but it didn't take it to the extreme where it wouldn't feel like Samurai Jack. So they knew what they were doing, at least. Then you have reboots like the Powerpuff Girls. And it's just, the problem with the new Powerpuff Girls is that it's not like the original. And they can make a few changes, but when they make too many changes, it just doesn't feel like the original show. And because of that, it just doesn't feel like the Powerpuff Girls at all. So why even call it the Powerpuff Girls? It was just, if they had some more fighting in it and they didn't have all those outdated internet memes, it would have been probably okay, but I thought up a list of some shows and that I think could probably get remade or have a sequel series. And it's just a bunch of shows that I think could most likely do well. Some of you might think that, that couldn't work, but this is going to be my own list of what I think could probably work. So my first one would be Tales from the Crypt. Now this was going to be done, and I'm not sure if it's 100% not going to happen, but M. Night Shyamalan was going to go and have a reboot series of it. But then I think the plans just didn't work and it got canceled, so that's kind of sad to see, because it was a pretty good series. And it was an anthology series. It had always about 3 stories to it, and it was just, the show was kind of, I guess, more of a adult version of Are You Afraid of the Dark? It was much like that, but for the most part, it's let's see, how should I say this? I really can't get the words out, but it was pretty much just an adult version of Are You Afraid of the Dark? It had blood in it. It had a bunch of sex. It had swear words, all that good stuff that a lot of people like to see. And because I think it was on HBO, it was allowed to get away with it. So it was a really good series, and it had some pretty good episodes to it. One of my favorite would probably be this episode where this kid is working with his mean uncle at a funeral home, and his uncle keeps telling him to do stuff, and he's not happy about it whenever the kid does it, so he goes and kills the kid, and then the kid eventually goes and haunts him. And that's a great episode, but that's just one episode that's good. And it's a real shame that it looks like it might not be getting done. Maybe it can happen still, but I highly doubt it. And a lot of people were kind of wondering whether it would work or not because M. Night Shyamalan was on it. And yeah, he has some dubs there. He has Avatar and The Happening and a lot of those bad works, but he's doing a little bit better lately. He had that, what's it called? The Shattering, something like that, but I know a lot of people did like that movie, so that's one show I think that can probably work. The next one would be Are You Afraid of the Dark, which I just spoke of a few minutes ago. Are You Afraid of the Dark was pretty much just a show about all these teens who would always go up to this campfire at the middle of the night and tell stories. And for the most part, it wasn't scary at all. It had some creepy moments in it that would probably, I guess, intense for a small child, but for the most part, it wasn't really that scary. The scariest part was probably the intro, but it was still a really entertaining show. It kept you entertained. You wanted to know how the episode was going to end, so that's probably what mattered the most in the end. And I think it could probably work pretty well in this day and age. They could go and make some more modernized stories and have a completely new gang. It could probably work out. And I do know they're going to have a movie soon, I think next year. I'm not sure what it's going to be about. I heard supposedly it's going to be an original story, and it's not going to be based on any of the stories from the show, but other than that, we don't really know anything. So I'm hoping it can be good, and if it is, maybe it can go into its own little series. And I hope that at least some of the cast members from the original series appear in the movie. That would be, I think, pretty cool. Unsolved Mysteries. I mean, a lot of creepy stuff in here. So Unsolved Mysteries was pretty much a show about, well, unsolved mysteries. It just had all these cold cases that haven't been solved from out all the years, like Jack the Ripper, the Zodiac Killer, and all that other kind of stuff. And it was a good series because it could help in a way. It had some modern cases that just happened in the last few years when it happened, and if you went and called their little hotline, and if you think that you knew the subject they were talking about, well, you can get the case solved. So you might get some serial killer in prison. So that's a good thing. And obviously it won't help at times. Jack the Ripper has been dead for many years now, so he got away with it. But it was still a really good series. I always liked watching it. Sometimes it would go probably kind of out of the way, doing ghost stories or UFOs and stuff like that, which is more science fiction or something like that, but it was still entertaining in the end, and I liked it. And I think they did reboot it at one point about 10 years ago, but it wasn't nearly as good, and it was just meh. But it would be probably nice if they did do it again. But if they do, they need to keep the original theme. Keep the original theme, or it wouldn't be worth watching. Liberty's Kids. This might be a show a lot of you have never heard of, and I wouldn't blame you if you haven't. So it was pretty much a show taking place during the American Revolution, and these kids who had to go and not really help with it per se, but just kind of get involved, I guess. The main kids were, let's see, what was the main kid's name again? Oh, James. He is a colonist, and he was for the revolution, and he was this, I think, a newspaper guy, and he wanted to be for the revolution, but then his love interest, a girl from England named Sarah, wasn't really entirely. She thought the colonists were all rebellious, and they deserved to be punished for what they did. Then you have Henry, who's this little French boy, and he doesn't really, I guess, he is for the revolution, but he's pretty much just there for comedy relief. That's really it. He goes and gets to all these sticky situations and these jokes. That's what he's pretty much there for. And there was also a freed slave named Moses. and he was pretty much the adult of the group since he was probably in his 20s or so. Probably the most surprising thing about the show was that they got actually some real talent on there. A bunch of well-known voice actors, and for a show like that, it's really surprising, because maybe for SpongeBob they would do that, but for a show that aired on Saturday mornings that probably too many people didn't even know about, it's just really surprising, actually. And it was a pretty good show overall. It taught you about the American Revolution, and it was in a way where you probably usually want to go and fall asleep, kind of like you would in your little classroom. It can probably be boring at times when they got into politics, but it still showed all the war and all the good stuff, not to the extreme, and they did kind of get to some points where they did actually talk about slavery, surprisingly, but they didn't still go too far on it. I always heard that they were supposed to make a sequel series to it, and it was going to take place during the Civil War and have the descendants of Sarah and James, but I never saw it, and neither did anyone else. And I tried to look up on it, and I really couldn't find anything on it, so I'm not even sure if it was real. I think I stumbled on maybe a couple articles and a friend who told me she heard about it. So if it was real, I'm not sure why it never happened. Maybe the studio just never had enough money, or maybe there just wasn't enough interest in it, so I'm not really sure, but I think it was kind of a missed opportunity, and they could have done a lot with it. Recess. This is a show back from 20 years ago. It starred these 6 kids and their adventures during recess and school, and that was it pretty much. And it was a pretty realistic series, actually. It was something you would probably actually often get yourself into in school. For example, trying to think of an episode here. There was one episode where all these kids are into these little monster cards, like Pokemon, and everyone's just getting really into it, except CJ, because he doesn't have any, so he tries to think of a way to get into it. So, but then, and he gets rich off it, or something like that, so. And then there's this other episode where Vince didn't see a movie, so because of that, he's the outcast of the whole school. So, it was often pretty realistic. Some episodes wouldn't be, but for the most part, it was a show that you would often see yourself in. And I could see themselves doing a modern version of it. And it probably wouldn't be too different now. I'm not sure what kids do in elementary school these days, but it can't be that different. The main difference they probably have is cell phones, but it would still, I think, be interesting to see a new series on it. And who knows if they could even have Miss Finster, because since she was always kind of a mean teacher, and some people would be like, she's a mean teacher, you can't have her in there. But her being mean was the main part of her. That's what made her funny. So, Recess, that would be another great show to have, and I think it would also be great to have it there because the show has never had a real DVD release, and maybe this would help the original series get one. I never understood that. It's a popular series, and it barely has any DVDs. Kids Next Door. So, this series was pretty much just about a bunch of kids who are convinced that they should rule the world, and adults are the ones who stole it from them. So they're trying to go and steal it back from them, and it seems that maybe it isn't real because there are adults who are always fighting them and trying to go and defeat them. But then there are the parents who have no idea about this kind of stuff, and it was really weird, but a really good series. And while most series often get worse as they go along, this was a series that I think got better as it went along. The first season was good, but then the second season it was better, the third season it was better. That's something that you usually don't see a lot. So it's a really interesting concept to see. And I think they were going to have, at least try to do a sequel series at one point. But I don't think it ever came through, sadly. I I'm not really sure why, because there was a lot of interest in it, but it just didn't look like not Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network wanted to go and invest the money in it, but it looked like it could have been good, because the trailer showed Nigel, and he looked a little bit older, I think, or maybe it was just a different design for him, but he was at the moon, and then the number, I think it was 262 or whatever his name is, was going and pleading for him to go and not do this, but he does it anyway, and it looks like it was going to be a really good series, but they never did for some reason. Maybe we'll see it one day. Maybe Samurai Jack got its continuation on Adult Swim, so maybe this could happen. And it would be great if that could happen. And I know some people would probably rather see it on Cartoon Network, because I've heard some people just didn't think that Kids Next Door could work on Adult Swim, but would you rather see that or a Kids Next Door version of the new Powerpuff Girls? That's your choice. So, to me, a Kids Next Door reboot would be really cool. Family Ties. This was an 80s sitcom, and you know, the typical 80s sitcom. It's really goofy, really cheesy, nothing like a real family, but they're still fun to watch. And Family Ties was really much about the same. It had these former hippie liberal parents who had to go and take care of their kids, and especially their conservative son Alex. And he's the one who makes the show. Alex is a great character. He was a role model for conservatives, and for liberals, he was a person to laugh at. So it was pretty much just something for both sides. And the thing I liked about the show was that there was really no bad guy in it. Sometimes Alex would be right, and sometimes he would be wrong. Sometimes the parents would be right, and sometimes they would be wrong. And it was clear that the writers were liberal, but at least they were trying to go and give it a chance. Unlike you see in most shows today, where if they have some kind of conservative character, he's probably racist, sexist, homophobic, mega wearing hat. But it was a really good show, and I think it would be kind of funny if they had a reversal where Alex and his wife have to go and take care of their liberal children. That would be, I think, kind of really cool to see. But the bad thing is that Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's disease, so it probably wouldn't happen. If it got cured, then maybe it would happen, but as of now, no. And I can't see any other character playing Alex, really, so until then, this series won't even happen. The Wonder Years. This was a show that took place during the 60s, but was made during the late 80s and early 90s. It had this kid named Calvin, and pretty much it was about him growing up during the time of the late 60s and early 70s. So it was kind of a show, if you're my age, about kind of like seeing where your parents grew up. This was pretty much how your parents lived. And the same things your parents went through. The culture, the family problems, and everything else that's in it. And it was a pretty good series along the way, because even today, some of the episodes still work out. You could still see yourself in some of these situations. So I think it would be kind of cool to see a sequel series where it has Calvin's son now, and then him growing up during the mid and late 90s. So I heard the kid who played Kevin, or what's his name again? It's slipping from my mind. But Savage something. But he said that there would probably never be a reboot or a sequel series. He probably knows more than we do, but I think it would be kind of cool to go and see a sequel series at one point. Quantum Leap. This was a show about this guy named Sam who makes his machine, and it has him go through all these people's lives, and he has to go and pretty much kind of change their lives for the better. When he goes into their lives, it's kind of hard to describe actually, but he goes into them, and then he kind of becomes them, and then and when he does, he has to go and try and save them from some kind of parole. And he really doesn't have any help except from his friend Al, and he can't physically help him. He can only help him as a hologram, so he can just go and tell him stuff, but not actually help him. And he can only leap from the 50s to the 80s, I think. And the show, I think, took place in the late 90s. So if they did a sequel series, they would probably go and branch out a lot more. And they can do stuff like 9/11. They probably wouldn't be able to get the original actors back because they're kind of aged now, and I think even the guy who played Al was retired. But they could probably at least get them back for a movie or the first couple episodes, and then move on to the next new people. But other than that, they probably wouldn't be able to get them back. But if they could at least come back for a few episodes, that would be great, and I would love to see a new series based on it. Danny Phantom. You probably know I like Danny Phantom from my intro. And Danny Phantom it was a really good show. It was about this one kid who can turn half ghost because this machine his parents have, who are obsessed with ghost hunting, turns him half ghost when he's inside it. So he dedicates his life to go and trying to go and save people from all these bad ghosts with his friend Sam, a goth girl, and his nerdy friend Black Guy Tucker, which is kind of weird because those were pretty much the same people from, what was it, Ned's Declassified, except the main kid can't turn ghost. It was probably my favorite out of all Hartman series. Very Odd Parents was good in its first few years, but then they added that baby, then the fairy dog, then the girl, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm not really sure if it's on today. I think it might be canceled. There hasn't been a new episode in about a year, but who cares anymore? And then there was Tough Puppy. I think that was about a dog who was a secret agent or a spy or something like that. I don't know, but it was okay. Nothing great, but okay. I don't think it really lasted that long, though. Then I think there was a new series with a green character. I don't know a thing about it. And then I think Hartman tried to go and pitch this new thing on his YouTube channel, and became this big controversy because it was for his own stupid game. But Danny Phantom was always my favorite because it was pretty much the most serious. It pretty much showed how teenagers usually act, and it had the most suspense in it, the best character development, just the best action. It was a really fun series to watch, and it only lasted a few years, sadly. But it was fun to watch while it lasted. And I would love to see a sequel series where maybe they're in college or maybe even just adults. And then we see now Danny as an adult having to go and take on bigger ghosts, but also having to take on the adult world and everything like that. And it would probably be just really cool to see. And they can even go and make some changes to it. Maybe have Vlad become an ally of Danny, and then have them fight along. It would be a really good way to go and make a series. I'm not sure if they could make it like Samurai Jack, because they could, I guess, put it on Teen Nick, but it wouldn't get as many views then, so that would be risky, and obviously having an adult version wouldn't do well on Nickelodeon unless they put it on Nick at Night, which would be kind of weird. But to me, having a sequel series to Danny Phantom would just be really great. It deserves it, and I know a lot of people want it. I think Hartman has thought about it, but it's never came through, and it really deserves it. It needs to get a sequel series, and just to go and continue the way of him fighting ghosts. So that's what I think about it. And that's what all the shows that I have that I think get sequels or reboots. Did you agree with me, or did you think I was just full of crap? I have the worst opinion ever, and none of these shows should ever get reboot, and I should just go and end this little video like I should have ages ago. What time is it? Yeah, I should get back soon. So, yeah, that's all I had to go and say on this. those were the shows I think I should probably get a reboot or sequel series. I don't know if you agree or disagree. What do you think? Is there anything I missed? And you can go and leave it down below. I'd be really interested to see what you think. But with that, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.